Shannon Pilcher.
Thank you, Jasper. Thank you all. I've been begging him for 10 years to come do this, and he finally let me do it. So thank you, Jasper. I'm going to play the video and then get started.
Shannon's down, he hit the wire. He hit the wire, he's down on the mountain.
I've never done this with a skydiving audience before, truly. That was absolutely the closest I've ever come to dying, as you can imagine. And even watching it with you here now, I mean, the water, I've probably watched it 300 times, and it still brings a significant lump to my chest. I mean, I was soaring behind, you guys I would not normally name my teammates, but if Jay Maletsky, I'm soaring behind Jay Maletsky out of the last ravine in the Swiss Alps, the whole mountain behind us, landing area in sight, and out of nowhere, a cable. My whole world fell apart. You saw it from my perspective as I followed, but you saw it from his as he turned, horrified at what was happening behind him. That was 15 years ago. We were in the Swiss Alps. We were on a mission. I forgot about that slide. We were on a mission to tackle some of Europe's biggest mountain peaks, the Matterhorn, Jungfrau, the Eiger's world-famous North Face. And it was the culmination of a decade or more of other such expeditions around the world, places like the Grand Canyon, the Dolomites, the French Alps, the fjords of Norway, over and over again, just to name a few. And these expeditions had given us, they had instilled in us a confidence and a trust in each other, but also a willingness to pursue greater and greater challenges together. And so there we were in Switzerland that morning. It was the second jump of the morning and our 7th descent down that exact same route. So we were brimming with confidence from 10 years of doing similar such mountain flights around the world successfully, I might add. And we were ultra familiar with the terrain. We knew the terrain. Inexplicably, that morning, we skipped the pre-jump flight briefing. Not a single team member, there were 10 of us there on this particular expedition, plus a ground crew of as many people. Not a single person spoke up to mention the missed protocol. And that was one of my big lessons from this expedition, was that experience and protocol in themselves do not guarantee success or survival. In fact, when it comes to experience, we had at least 10,000 jumps each to our name at this time. We had experience in spades, and when it comes to protocol, our 10 years of expeditions had been grounded and clear, repeatable protocol. That was the backbone of our success. Something was missing that maybe connects the two. And I like to say, in the US, we say, if it was a snake, it would have bitten me. Yeah? If it was a snake, it would have bitten me because it was so simple. It was a simple willingness to speak up. A sense of security to say what other people may only be thinking, or a courage to sound maybe overly cautious or afraid, because we know that our teammates will receive those messages without filters or judgment. When that kind of communication is absent, then mistakes or near tragedies like mine are not far behind. When that kind of communication is present, when people feel obligated to speak up for the sake of safety, then even the small things get noticed. My whole life, this is truly retrospect, but my whole adult life has been shaped by high-performing teams. First, for 15 years as an athlete, competing for world championship titles against the best skydivers on the planet. And then for another 10 years, standing shoulder to shoulder with tier 1 operators, military operators, where precision literally means lives. And now for the last decade as an executive coach, working with senior leaders who make million-dollar decisions every day. That experience, that privileged journey for me, through those different exposures and experiences, has given me so many lessons, and I've thought about it for years, but I've really sifted it down to one overarching message or truth about teams. And if you'll sign up for my mailing list, I'll send it to you in about 3 weeks. Thank you. Come on. That one overarching truth is this, and I'm not kidding here. High performance is fueled entirely by trust. High performance is fueled entirely by trust. And I'm looking at your eyes and I'm trying to read your minds right now. And I can imagine, as most people, that some of you are thinking trust is a soft skill. Something I thought for a long time too. But it's anything but a soft skill. It's the energy force that propels teams. It either accelerates them into faster, more balanced wheels of high performance, or it decelerates them into slower, wobblier wheels of low performance. And that speed of that rotation depends simply on how much trust flows through it. And that's why I'm here with you. That's what I want to talk to you about today is because we're all part of teams. Yeah, we're all a part of teams, whether it's skydiving teams working on projects or competing together, whether it's your family, whether it's your communities, your businesses, your churches, whatever it might be. We all have groups of people that we're pursuing various objectives with. And so this applies to you just as much as it does to me or anyone else. By now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, what is this wheel he's talking about? And I'm glad you asked, because I've put together this model. So I have a background in behavioral science. And I've put together, for years, I've been working on a model that I'm about to show you when these slides are over. But it was this keynote in New York City that really helped me get it through the finish line. Kind of that if it weren't for the last minute, you wouldn't get things done. So I've finally finished this model, and it's the link between trust and performance. And I call it the trust performance wheel. Every team on its journey to higher performance enters the wheel through one gateway: shared risk. It's that moment when we lean in and we say, we're in this together, let's make it happen. As I continue talking today, be thinking about what team is it in your world that you spend the most time with, whether it's a project, a family, a community, and try to consciously, intentionally map some of the things I'm about to talk about to those teams that you're a part of. Yeah? Do your best. It doesn't have to be the right team that you're choosing, but something that you can add context in your own mind. So you enter through shared risk, and then three forces keep keep the wheel spinning. 3 forces, or I call them categories of behaviors, which I'm going to go to in a moment. But mission clarity, courageous communication, and extreme accountability. In his book, there's an author, Stephen M. R. Covey, he says that trust changes everything. And I couldn't agree more. The question is how? How does trust actually raise the performance of your team, the teams that you're thinking of right now, right? The teams you're bringing to your mind right now. How does trust raise the performance of that team? That's the purpose of this wheel. So mission clarity is the first category of behaviors. And the 3 behaviors drive mission clarity. A shared definition and alignment on the team objectives, but that's not what it says up there. Putting the team first is what is my short for that. That's the action. Crystal clear definition and understanding of each team member's role and responsibility in achieving that mission. And then an absolute selflessness, a willingness to help and support no matter what, without ego. Those are the 3 behaviors. Every team, and I know you guys can relate on your skydiving teams especially, every high-performing team I've been a part of, a team that's trying to be their absolute best, is crystal clear on the mission or the objective of the team. Likewise, everyone knows his or her role and that of the others in making the mission a success. In the sky, doing our expeditions, flying formations in front of all these mountains, we're very clear on the mission. And doing exhibitions in front of crowds, our mission from Performance Designs is simple: to inspire the dream of flight. That's what we're called to do in everything that we do. We do that by building a formation, keeping our eyes on the leader at all times, no varying from that, transitioning exactly in sync, and then landing together safely. But the devil is always in the details. Always. The details will sneak up and get you, right? So like things like, what altitude exactly are we going to make the transition? Or what happens if someone doesn't make it in the formation, gets lagged behind? What happens if the exits get spread out too far? These are the contingencies or the small variables that are sub-goals or subservient to the overarching mission, but they must be included in the planning. They must be talked about and planned and then revisited. In the business world, you're carrying a goal for months or years on end. You've got to revisit these, not only the overarching goal, but the sub-goals along the way. We've got to keep checking in so that we're staying aligned. The work that I do with teams today in the corporate space, we call it HPT, High Performing Team Alignment. Team alignment. And I think that word is beautiful for all of us in what I'm sharing, because it's like your car, you get your wheels aligned, and then 9, 12 months later, you need to go do it again. It's not something that stays or sustains forever. It needs a constant rework to make sure that it stays aligned. Likewise with the mission. There was a story once, Petter might relate to this, or any of you have been to Norway, but we were in Norway over 10 years ago, and we were planning this. We would go there year after year. We were planning this team, like barber pole, we call it, a team spiral down the front of this massive 3,000 or 4,000 foot waterfall. And at the bottom, we were to come out of that spiral and resume our snake, our single file line, and shoot the gap between 2 like boulders, house-sized boulders. And everything, we knew the mission, we knew the plan, and we came out of the spiral at the bottom and we're resuming the line. And I remember just getting a thump to the chest, like, shit, we didn't align on the exact angle we would enter this notch, horizontally or vertically. And we made it through, we landed safely, unscathed. But I remember having and probably my teammates just having a big breath saying, man, we weren't aligned, we were lucky. And luck is a really fragile foundation when it comes to high extreme environments, right? It was a painful lesson or a painful reminder that mission clarity, being aligned on the overarching mission and the details, while it's not always glamorous, it is non-negotiable. In the Tier 1 communities, so you know what Tier 1 is now, we work a lot with these guys in skydiving, the skydiving context. I'm really going to fall off this stage in a minute, I'm pretty sure. Stage dive.
Team effort.
In this community, you guys, the mission is sacred. It's probably true for military all over the world. Like, mission comes before the individual, right? The team comes before the individual. The individual is just part of the game. And likewise, they are so adept at knowing each other's role and responsibility that they fill in. It's almost plug and play. And I'm being like, we're out briefing a jump. You know how skydivers walk your canopy jumps, but we're out in the field walking our jump, and one of them isn't there, has missed, is late or just forgotten to be there. They don't hem and haw about, oh, where's John? Somebody else steps in. So for the coaches, we don't notice that anyone's missing. They just fill in each other's roles, plug and play, in order to get the mission, to keep the ball moving down the field, so to speak. That's mission clarity for you. Just to give you an example, I'll go into a business example here in a few minutes. The second force on the wheel, and my favorite, is courageous communication. And it's so critical. I mean, you guys know as well as I do that communication is everything in being human. Like, it's how we progress as a species, right, compared to anyone else. Three behaviors are at the heart of courageous communication: courageous candor, vulnerability, and curiosity. In the sky, silence can be deadly. On our mountain expeditions, if the spotter, I don't have to tell you who the spotter is, but if the spotter opens the door and looks out and he or she doesn't like what they see, they have permission to call off the jump. No questions asked. And one voice of candor protecting the entire team. You guys are as familiar with that, more familiar with that than probably some of the corporate people, right? You get it, that's what we do. But it's even more magnified in a mountain setting where there is little or no room for error. So vulnerability also played a big part in what we do. We're often, with expeditions and exhibitions, we were often attempting to do what had never been done before. And so if someone was anxious or uneasy or uncertain, confused, whatever the emotion, they weren't just allowed to say it, it was expected for people to speak up in that environment, right? It's like naming one's nerves is not a weakness. It is considered respect and safety for the entire team. And then curiosity kept us sharp. So much of what I talk about to my corporate group, I'm hearing myself now talking to you, and I'm like, wow, you guys already know this stuff, because so much of what I've learned has come from the sport of skydiving over all these years. And curiosity, what I was just about to say, is that curiosity keeps us sharp. We spend so much more time on the ground than we do in the air. And so at any given time in our expeditions, any two of us would be leaning on each other, trying to glean wisdom and learn from each other what they're experiencing in these jumps. How much time are you leaving between exit? What kind of blast are you getting? What flight mode are you using to keep up with John, because I'm having trouble? That kind of learning posture, rooted or grounded in curiosity, is what made the whole team better. That's courageous communication. And then the final force on the wheel is extreme accountability. Three behaviors are fundamental or foundational for extreme accountability. And I got to read the Meer to see what they are. No. Owning the outcome, honoring the mistakes, honoring the commitments, and owning the mistakes. In my mind, I call it OFF. Own it, fix it, follow through. It helps it keep just a little mantra that makes it easy for me when I join a team. Own it, fix it, follow through. Every high-performing team that I've been a part of, the team members adorn, do you know what adorn is? Wear a mantle of responsibility for mission success. Or said differently, they see mission success as their individual responsibility. And they stop at nothing to making it happen. And I have a quick, before I get into my stories, I want to tell you one I just saw this morning as Will. He doesn't know this, but we're sitting here trying to get all the technical stuff set up. And part of that is coordinating with the folks here who are running this facility. And I saw Will a couple of times see the man walk in and run over and help coordinate because he's the Spaniard, he's the Spanish-speaking person among us. So he was just owning getting this room ready like each one of us. He wasn't leaving it on Jasper as an example. We all know how that works. We all know how that is. But so that's owning the outcome. You know what I mean? Like everybody is responsible for mission success. In the sky, if I botch, in the sky, we all own the outcome. But if I botch a maneuver, if I botch my approach into a formation, I'm instantly faced in the sky with no time to think. I'm faced with two choices. I either wallow in my mistake, spiral away in my self-pity, or I recover, refocus, and get back in slot. And again, as skydivers, you all know this, right? We don't have time to wallow. We've got to keep pushing, keep making it happen for 60 seconds or whatever it is. Yeah, so that's what is that? That's owning my mistakes, honoring my commitments, and owning my stakes real time, live. In the tier 1 community, those guys, there is, just like the mission is shared, accountability is shared. And I've learned it more from them than anyone in my entire life. They are always doing something to push the mission forward. And there is absolutely no room in their community for excuses or blame. You do not make excuses, right? And it makes me laugh because they had you don't make even if you have real reasons for not delivering on your commitment or not being in slot or whatever it is, you don't make excuses. It's just, it happened and you own it. And you keep all your little rationale to yourself. You zip it, you know what I mean? And they had a phrase that always makes me chuckle because it's true, harsh but true, and they call it excuse matrix. You could hear them throwing it at each other if anybody was like not owning their mistakes but looking for someone or something else to blame. And if you were coined with excuse matrix, it's not a good place to be. You know what I mean? So that's extreme accountability. A little touch on that. In a world where silence, confusion, blame can cost lives, literally. And so now the question is, what does that look like in our world, in a normal world, not a skydiving world? We're all up here in the skydiving world, but what does it look like in our real lives where we're not putting our lives on the line, so to speak? Great question. That's where I'm going to go into these corporate stories now. And I'm going to talk about each of these from a corporate example. So the first, I'm going to touch on these, mission clarity. The first one, and some of the details are foggy for me even, but they're kind of less important. I'll ask you to listen for the behaviors that are present or absent. See if that will help you sharpen the resonance about how you might be more intentional with your own behaviors. Yeah. So the first, mission clarity, this was executive sales team that I was coaching, the whole team, not just the individuals. And they were preparing, I believe, like quarterly forecasts. In a couple of weeks, they needed to deliver those. And they were each using the same data and the same financial models, or so they thought. So they aligned on the surface, and then they went off to do their work. It turns out some of them were making different assumptions about the data or the models, and that's a little bit over my head, but they weren't using it in the same way, to the point that a couple of weeks later, when they sat down with their senior leadership team to show the numbers, the discrepancies immediately became obvious. Not only in the numbers, but also the numbers were a reflection of the fact that they weren't they weren't staying aligned and working together, communicating together in the right way. So what turned into weeks of backtracking and justifying and fixing could have been resolved with mission clarity, not only on what are we trying to achieve, what do we want to deliver in the quarterly forecast, but checking in maybe like weekly or daily huddles, quick check-ins to make sure that we're thinking the same way along the way. The second one is courageous communication. And this was, which one? Oh yeah, this was a food company, North American food company. And so one of the things that I do, I coach individuals, but I also coach the teams. And I was coaching a team at a plant. The food company had like 8 plants around the country. So I had been coaching the leadership team of this plant. And in this case, it was a meeting between them and their senior leaders going over like production forecasts. I'm making that up. I don't know what they were going over. But they were in a meeting, and I was a virtual fly on the wall. So I was just observing from a TV screen, hopefully a small TV screen in the corner. And I'm listening to them. And at this point in the conversation, the senior leaders have the floor and are driving the conversation. And one of the plant operators raises his hand, but as soon as he raised his hand, he interrupted. And he said, excuse me, something to the effect of, hey, can we pause for a minute? I'm not sure where we are or how we got here. Can we go back and go through that again? And from my little TV screen on the wall, I could have heard a pin drop, the awkwardness in the room, probably because it wasn't culturally acceptable for a plant manager to interrupt one of his seniors so boldly like that, but also, in my mind, because he was expressing confusion about something that he probably shouldn't have been confused about, right? Like interrupting and saying, I'm not following what's going on. So the senior leader did what any would do, and he said, okay. They backed up, they went through it, and as luck would have it, I'm not saying it would always turn out this way, but they actually not just clarified for him, but they stumbled over a mistake that would have, had they proceeded, would have been a costly error. And so this one person's voice of candor or vulnerability, however you see it, saved the company from a costly mistake that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And it started to change the culture and allow everyone at that table to start speaking up more boldly, and the conversation rises, right? So the question I would like to leave with you, and I forgot to give you the question on the first one, but the question I would like to leave you is, when is the last time in any context, but maybe in those teams you're thinking about, when is the last time someone's voice of candor or vulnerability saved the team from a critical error? When is the last time your voice of candor or vulnerability saved the team from a critical error? And I'm adding this right now, but how many times do we stay quiet when we're feeling something because we don't want to disrupt the conversation? We don't want to seem like, the group we're talking to know so much more than I do. They don't need to hear this, those kinds of things. So that's candor, or that's courageous communication. The third story, this is a more recent one. So this was an individual that I was coaching, senior leader for a home builder, again, a national home builder, very big across America. And I had just begun working with him. So I think we had 2 or 3 phone calls together. And he called me out of nowhere to let me know that he had made a big error, like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he was sweating. He was a COO, so he was on the C-suite, on the top team of the company. And you can imagine the nerves he was having. And he was a man of integrity, a good man. At the end of our call, we didn't have a solution. I remember hanging up feeling like, shit, man, I wondered if between now and the next call, is he going to crumble? Is his integrity going to break? Like trying to fudge the numbers, make it not look so bad, something like that. But he immediately called a meeting of his senior team for the explicit purpose of standing up and saying, here's what happened, here's what I did, here's what I'm changing going forward. And you can imagine what happened to this man. Any guesses? I was hoping you'd say that. Bring it. No, yeah, I heard promoted as well, fired or promoted. The reality is that his credibility didn't plummet, it skyrocketed. People trusted him more, not less. Maybe not in the moment, if we're honest, right? Like it's a hard blow for everyone on that team to know we're losing tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But through and through, the man's courage and willingness to own his mistake was admirable by everyone there. And it began to change the culture once again. So the question for you is, this is where I need my notes, and I need to go check my notes for the question. What is the question? The question is, I want to get this question. Is this being filmed or just pictures? No, there's a really good, I might have it here. No, I don't have it here. Oh yeah. So what happens, I put it in this morning. So what happens on your team or your family or whatever you're thinking of when someone quickly and transparently owns his or her mistake? Do they? Is that part of the culture of that team? Do people quickly and transparently own their mistakes? And if they do, does it strengthen trust within the team, or does fear take over? Yeah. That's the wheel. Oh, I'll do that in a second. That's the wheel. That's the wheel in the real world, not in the high risk world. Small behaviors, small ways that we choose to behave every single day. I'm skipping a part now that I won't, about data that we don't need to go into. But what I'd like you to do, don't pull out your phones yet. We're going to try this in a moment. I'm not sure I got it jigged up right this morning. But what I'd like you to do right now is just think about whatever team you had in your mind. Just ask yourself, where are you? Where is the team right now on this wheel? Where could you put the most attention? Does it have the behaviors there? Yeah. Where could you put the most attention to raise the performance of this wheel? And I'll remind you that high-performing teamwork is not about heroics, individual heroics. Team before me, right? That whole thing. But it's not about being the fastest, the smartest, the brightest, the one with the most information, or the one with the most valuable information. It's about trust. And trust is built on the small choices that we make every day. So now, if you have your phones, I'd like you to try, and I'm going to have to show a different screen. So we're going to, if you have your phones, do you see there's no QR code? It was there. Okay, there we go. Yeah, try it and see. And if it works, what I'd like you to do, before you pick anything though, choose the one behavior that you would change. So now it's not about the team, it's about what would you change tomorrow. Start working on tomorrow to make the team better. And I'll tell you one quick story while you're thinking. Before you vote, you might want to hear this story, is that another man I worked with, when we give all the feedback, he had 3 or 4 really clear developmental opportunities for himself. But he chose one because he read James' Clear book, Atomic Habits. Have you guys read that? I think they say 21 days to ingrain a new habit. And he was hell-bent on sticking to one behavior change for 21 days. Yeah? And his behavior was make space in a group setting, for the quietest voice in the room. Whether formal or informal, make space for the quietest voice. And in no time, people noticed, not that he was making space, but that more voices were coming to the table. It was more generative, more diverse. And so my encouragement to you is pick one. It doesn't have to be the right one, but what behavior would you start working on tomorrow? And go ahead, have you already picked? Has everybody already picked? Go ahead and scan it and pick. There's nothing to say about this. There is no wrong behavior. We know that owning mistakes is the biggest, right? Why understanding roles? Somebody give us a little insight about why you chose that for your team. Please, yeah.
Because I feel that sometimes that my personality type doesn't really work with a role that can be done by someone better than me.
Okay.
It's nice to have a clear definition of what role I'm strongest at and what role other people strongest at. And I'd like to have more clarification with that.
I'm so glad you said that, because but when I first made this whole presentation, instead of roles, I called it strengths and struggles. And I realized those aren't the same thing actually, but in understanding my role and your role, part of that understanding, and I mean, it's so critical, is understanding where we're at our best, where we shine, and where you can put me here and I'm going to give my best, but I might not perform like you need me to for this team, right? So I love that. That's part of understanding roles, and I didn't get into it in this talk, but it's not just knowing where we are, but let's put people where they fit. They say the right people on the bus. Yeah, I really like that. Thank you. I'm going to move. Did anyone else like to say anything about what you chose, though? Come on, it's kind of fun. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I guess it's not so much into skydiving world, but just to give some context, I'm building a tech startup at the moment.
Okay.
We're a team of 4, and I have a struggle at the moment because I'm also working as a coaching consultant, teamwork and stuff.
Okay.
Being within a team where I see the trust has started lacking, and I find it quite difficult to stay in a curiosity mindset and sharing myself and being vulnerable, but not being candid, like being direct and saying what I truly want and what I expect from teammates. So I didn't have the chance to put it up, but I would put candor because I find it quite difficult also just to be super direct and expecting something out of another person to kind of bring the team together and start keep trust within the team.
So I'm going to just say to the group, and tell me if I get this wrong, but what I heard from him in my words, not his, is kind of balancing candor and curiosity in a way, and that in itself can be challenging. Either one of them in themselves is a challenge, but empowering curiosity in your team while also remaining candid, like saying, hey, I got this, that's not the best idea, whatever it is, like keeping things moving because we want to be candid, and that requires quite a delicate balance, right? Awesome. So I have to say, well, not yet. As I think back on my accident in the Swiss Alps, what is haunting is not the broken bones. I mean, I'm very privileged to be standing in front of you with a family, talking about something I love to my peers. But to this day, that was 15 years ago, and this is absolute no lie, I still have PTSD. And what haunts me to this day is that it was preventable. I have infirmities. I have physical limitations that I did not have before that have changed the way I participate in the world. And that haunts me, is that it was preventable. The cable was visible. We had the information. Yet for some reason, whether we didn't think it was important enough, we didn't have the courage, we didn't trust each other enough, whatever it was, we didn't bring it up, and trust faltered, and my life was put on the line. And I see it in businesses, I see it in a lot of teams. The information is there, but when we hoard it, we spin it, we rationalize it away, trust dissolves, performance drops. The same author I referenced earlier, Covey, he calls this kind of leadership Trust and Inspire. It's a great book also, by the way. I've shared with you the trust performance wheel. 2 different approaches, same basic language and concept, that high trust is what allows us to risk together, to grow together, and to win together. High trust, risk, grow, and win. And high trust is available to each of us. It's in the small choices that we make every single day with our teams. The trust to put the mission above ourselves, the trust to courageously say what we feel, and the trust to owning the outcome as if our lives depended on it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna play a video of a good jump just to end it off. Grand Canyon 2007. A triple stunt. A 3-way barrel roll off the rim, 3-way barrel roll into the canyon, and then a crisscross landing on the bottom. Look at the cameraman.